Gitte.
Hello, everybody. I am having a little problem here because I forgot to put. I was super excited and I just hit "Let's go live!" Whee! And I didn't get her name well. I want to have a right display on the screen.
Okay,
So, get a what?
Klitgaard. It's K-L-I-T-G.
Klitgaard. Double T.
No, one T and then a G, like in Gitte. And A-A-R-D.
AARD.
Yeah,
And we'll leave it without a title so that finally you can see her name appearing. It's not appearing. Boom, magic.
magic.
Yeah.
Woo.
Welcome, everybody. And you can tell I'm tired. It has been a long day full of adventures, but I'm never tired enough to skip another awesome conversation with another awesome presenter that, again, we have lots of them. But I had the opportunity to get in touch with lots of awesomeness. We were talking a little bit in the morning,
Yeah,
a little bit of that. Gitte, welcome. Thank you very much for coming by.
thank you.
Uh, how are you? How has been the
I'm
event?
good. I'm good. Um, this is my 10th year here,
Oh, wow.
and as I come here more and more, I am getting better at taking breaks.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's super interesting and there's so many things to see. But sometimes you just need to take a rest or take a swim or take a walk.
One can be carried out very
Yeah,
easily, right?
like I mean, the
Here.
first year I was here, I was up until 4 every night and then up at 7 so I could see the keynote. And after four
Oh, my
days,
God.
I just crashed because
Yeah.
So I'm starting to do it a bit more. Like, okay, I'm not going to the speakers dinner even though I want to meet people. I'm gonna go to bed early. Um,
Yeah, we're being. No, don't worry. Safe travels. There are people already
yeah,
leaving.
sadly.
Nos vemos pronto. Adiós. That always happens. These conferences have so
Yeah,
much movement.
yeah.
Ine, for before we get deeper into you brought some things that we haven't mentioned about the conference,
hmm
but would you mind sharing who you are, what do you do, what makes you special to the audience?
Ooh. So I am sort of an agile coach, leadership coach, organizational coach. What I do is I help people, teams, leaderships with communication, collaboration, psychological safety is my specialty. And I do this by coaching, sometimes by helping them with structure. I often work with retrospectives or facilitation. And then I speak at conferences. So I started speaking in 2013,
Oh,
was my
wow.
first talk, which is about being brave enough to be yourself.
Oh.
And since then I've been doing a little bit of agile, but mostly I talk about mental health, like stress and depression. I talk about imposter syndrome. I talk about being vulnerable
Mhm.
and being brave. And recently I've started talking a bit more about managers because I realized that the whole um, revolution that or evolution that I hope would come in management is not there. It kind of feels like we're going a bit back. So
Mm.
I started talking about this, and so the talk I did here was called "We Need More Managers," and people are like, "Oh, but that's also what I want them to think." And I think we forget managers. We forget the management skill. We talk so much about leaders. We talk about overhead, but there are many things in being a classical manager that we need in our organizations. So I think that we need to go back to that, and then of course keep the leadership skills as well, and then train people in it. Not just say, "Hey, here's a hat. Now you magically know everything," because there is a lot things that are difficult.
That's an interesting because I'm sure that from the title of your talk, it was like a ooh, like because yeah, managers are not always that popular. I can tell. I've been in the manager role, and I think you bring a very interesting point because sometimes we see the manager position like the natural progression in a career, blah blah blah,
Yeah,
and it's not like yeah, you just get imbued with the manager mantle, and then you are an awesome manager naturally. I'm sure that your talk goes a lot in those lines.
yeah, and also about that management is actually a skill, and there are skills you can learn. There are things like at the moment, for instance, we have a lot of layoffs.
Mm,
How do you fire someone in a good way? Because you have
humane
to,
way.
you probably have to fire someone in your career if you're a manager for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, You need to have difficult conversations. You need to give feedback, positive feedback, but also negative feedback, because people might need to improve.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we don't want from old fashioned management is the micromanagement. We don't want people to be managed. We want the organization to be managed. We want the work to be managed.
Yeah.
And then we need to take the good things from leadership about setting directions, about encouraging people, about helping them grow. And then there are all the other things like empathy and communication, things that we sometimes think of as natural, but they are not. I mean, we all communicate, but we don't all communicate well.
No.
And I think we've done ourselves a disservice by moving a lot of this to the teams. And yes, a team can do some testing, a team can do some of the management things, the leadership things, but we've come to a point where when are they actually going to produce something?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like. And all over the world we see that more and more people are getting stressed, people are getting disengaged. In Europe, only 13% of the working population are engaged in work, according to Gallup's report of the global workplace. And I think
Interesting.
part of that is because we don't have good managers. So 70% of the effect on management or on engagement is through what kind of manager you have, according to Gallup's report. So if you have a really good engaged manager, you get engaged. If you have one that like doesn't care about you, that's one of the questions. Does your manager care about you? Um,
What is your stance on this difference between manager and leader and like being a, I feel it goes a little bit along the lines of what you're saying.
yeah, I think we've been using them a little bit interchangeably and going like, "Oh, manager bad, leader good."
Yeah.
And there are some things in being a leader and going in the front that is good, but there are also things that are bad, because sometimes it becomes hands-off leadership.
Yeah.
Oh, you're autonomous teams, fix it yourself. Where that is not the job of a good leader, a good manager. A good manager is, you have this frame, you have freedom within it. I'm here if you need me. I'm accessible. I'm here to help you. So if they come to you with a problem, it's your job to help them.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to coach them, help them to help themselves, or maybe you need to actually fix it because it's something that's in more organizational levels or something that you've been trained in, maybe. So I think we need both. And whether we call it manager or leader, I mean, for me, the difference is that everyone can be a manager is a position.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership is something we show. So I think, for instance, if you have been in testing a long time, become a senior tester, you are also a sort of leader because you help the organization more with quality. You help younger testers more with quality, or inexperienced testers. Same with development. It's all kind of leadership. Nothing else. We lead by example. It can be
Yeah.
good. It can be bad. But I do think we should stop only talking about leadership and put management back in the vocabulary, and also look at the things a manager can help us with. And there are managers who need to unlearn things because that's how they have been trained to do.
Like what things would you say
Like
they need?
micromanagement, for instance.
Oh, wow.
That's one thing. One of the things I see when I go into organizations is that a lot of managers tend to micromanage when they get under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've been firing so many managers, as well as UX, some testers, some coaches, um,
They
a
feel
lot
the
of
rope
managers,
as well,
they are
right?
super busy.
Mm.
They have a lot of people they need to take care of. They need to do things in the organization. And the only way they can handle is to kind of become these controlling entities, because you need to know what's going on.
Hmm. But it's a balance, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
always knowing how much is when are you like holding someone or when are you choking someone? It's kind of like a
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
that's
And
a
I think,
feeling, right?
yeah. And I think a lot of the things that, let's say, an old fashioned manager needs to learn is to take that step back,
Yeah.
learning to trust people. But it also needs, like, if you have an autonomous teams or self organized, whatever we choose to call it, they need to then step up and take responsibility. Um, you need to have an agreement about accountability. Accountability is often a bad word because it's like, oh, you're accountable for this. We will punish you if everything goes wrong. And that's really bad. Accountability should be, if you are like my team member, that we have an agreement. The team is accountable for this. That means, yes, you take the responsibility, but it also means that you give account.
Hmm.
Means that maybe you give me a report that where I can see how the project is going. Maybe you come tell me once a week, because if I don't know how things are going, I need to move closer towards the team and do the micromanagement. So you need to have an organization that appreciates the manager, helps them, supports them, but you also need a team that steps up.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's really interesting when you say as well. Gets my attention that in Europe, the engagement percentage is not as high. Do you do you think that here are kind of like more managers that micromanage, or
no,
is it the opposite?
I think it depends. I
Hmm.
see, like, there's a tendency in the Nordic countries to be less micromanagement,
Yeah.
but I do see it, and I see it more now that we're in crisis and where we want to save as much cost as possible. And I think it's damaging for the companies. And I think in a few years we're gonna have so many burnouts because
Oh
people
yeah.
can't
I
keep
mean, I
doing
think
it
we
this
are
way.
already having
We are
some
having some, but there's
good
also a
amount.
lot who stay at work.
Yeah.
And not only is it bad for the people, it's also bad for the product. If you are stressed, part of your brain literally shrinks. The
Yeah. I
part where you
mean,
have creativity.
how many of us have heard about the airplane doors flying out just because of these overloads of stress and
Yeah,
people just
yeah.
cannot keep up? And I feel also it's like and I'm not picking specifically just a plane airplane example came to mind, but I have heard it's a management issue that it's like being pressuring too much and pushing too much and all this burnout that the people are already like, I don't care, I'm just gonna push the product because I'm but up to that point where I just, you just want me to push it, I'll push it. That.
Yeah. And I think part of it is that we have become greedy. We want more and more and more and more. And especially if you're on the stock market, whereas let's say you make $10 million. What if you could make $5 million and all your people were healthy? $5 million is still a lot of money.
Aren't you happy with 10 already? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but that's
another.
what, like, we kind of we keep going. No, actually 10 is not enough. We want to go to 12. We want to go to 20. Oh, we need to cut some costs. We remove some people, but we still want the same things.
Yeah.
When do we realize that we can't keep doing this? Just because you want magically people to do more doesn't mean they can. And actually, the more
Or
you
that they
pressure them,
should.
or that they should,
Yeah.
definitely not. And the more you pressure them, the less they can actually do.
Yeah. That's an interesting because you are talking about the soft spot where it's like enough pressure that you are motivated, but at the same time that you are not like, oh my God, I cannot take it anymore. And it's an interesting balance because I've seen, and I'm going to share a little bit of my
Yeah.
experience a few years ago when I started my current position. It was like the question, what are you good at? What do you want to do? That's going to be your work. You're going to get freedom. And and I was like, why aren't you kind of like gonna boss me around and like tell me what to do? I'm like, no, if you enjoy the things that you're doing, I'm not gonna be, I won't need to follow you around and you're just gonna fly on your own. And fly I did, and I burned myself
Oh yeah,
out so
yeah.
much. Is the other extreme. Have
The-
you seen that
oh yeah,
happen
yeah,
as
yeah.
well?
So when I did my talk the first time about stress and depression, the subtitle, or it still is, how love for your work can kill you.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's also part of your job as a manager, is to make sure that your people actually rest, that they don't do work in the evening. And yes, there might be once in a while, hopefully very rarely, where you have to do that. But if, let's say you have a very important thing that needs to be done by New Year's because it's a tax law, and people have to work late, then when you come to January, people take it slow.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We don't take the stop. And I think, yes, we want people to be high performers. That's part of it. But that requires that they know what's expected of them. They know what they're contributing to. Like, what am I actually building? Am I just creating code, or am I making a product, or am I helping people?
That's an interesting one that you said high performers, but at the same time, I'm not sure if high performance. You should be a performer. Do your
Yeah. Oh
job.
yeah,
Do it
yeah.
well. But why it has to be higher and more? I think that's where it gets kind of
Yeah. And
hurtful,
I think the
right?
mistake we also make is we want people to be high performers all the time. And like if you have people in sports, let's say they do marathons, for instance. they will not train the 42 kilometers all the time. They will train 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers.
Or they don't even run at the fastest
Yeah,
pace all the 42 kilometers. There are moments where you need to kind
yeah,
of speed it up, and that's it.
yeah. And then when they come to the part, they are high performers,
Hmm.
and then afterwards they rest.
Because that's another one that we often and I have learned from reading some articles and things out there that yeah, rest is also part of where you're getting the creativity,
Yeah,
figuring out how to fix some issues, like when you you're kind of doing the work by resting, and that so for some people it's like so counterintuitive and
yeah. But it's because our brain has to digest things and move them around and make connections, and we do this while we sleep. So if we don't sleep enough, that doesn't happen.
and not only sleeping, like
Yeah,
stepping away from that.
yeah,
How many times you have like this super tough problem, you have been breaking your head at it, and you step away, think, oh, I got it.
yeah. I like it's like in like Men in Black, which I don't even know if people remember anymore. But it's like this is a pie problem. What do you mean?
uh,
Oh, we go and we have a piece of pie and then you talk about something else. Like, oh, now we have it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good, and it's good. It's good for our brain if we can look at nature. Helps our brain. But there's actually research now that shows that even closing your eyes and thinking about nature can help you, which I find super
Oh.
interesting because sometimes our brain doesn't know the difference between the stories we tell it and what's actually true.
Mm-hmm.
So we can generate peace by thinking of a forest or a river. That's also helpful.
Huh. Yeah, because you're um and no neurosurgeon here or anything, but probably you're activating different paths in your head that will still, and it's a good example of the river. You get thoughts flowing
Yeah.
elsewhere and get new connections. That's a very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, step away from your computer, write something by hand, talk to other people, take a walk, drink a cup of tea, and actually taste it properly, or coffee for that matter.
Oh, how many times we're just like gulping, gulping,
Yeah, yeah,
gulping, and to go
exactly.
back to the office.
Yeah,
That's another one.
and sometimes we do that. Sometimes we need that. I mean, I have times where I come home from work, and in the evening I'm like, oh, I just need something in my to eat. And other days I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna take time. I'm gonna make my food. I'm actually gonna properly taste it.
Enjoy the
Yeah,
process of making it, of
yeah.
taking it. And how do you feel this connects with testers, the QA community? When you talk about managers, do you think that they, because it's a double-edged sword, is the saying?
Yeah,
Um, because sometimes, so many times, testers, we are not the managers, we're being managed, and
yeah. And I think that's part of it is that as a good engineering manager, for instance, you need to take quality into consideration
hmm
because you are the ones hiring not just the testers but also the engineers. You might not be the one who hired the testers, but you're definitely the one hiring the engineers.
yeah,
So you can look for, do they actually test their stuff? Do they consider quality? You will often be the one who sets or at least the engineering department will be the one setting the frames of how are we doing things? What's the test strategy? What's our tech strategy? How do we act towards the team? Do we actually yell at them if they're not done? Or do we? I've seen this. I've
no, no,
seen
no, yeah, it's
a tester who found a super big bug the day before release, and her
oh, poor
manager
guy.
yelled at her instead of saying, and this was medical software. And I'm like, thank God we
Oh,
found this before it went into production. And her managers just yelled at her.
that
So we have the opportunity to have a bad influence, but we also have the opportunity to have a really good influence.
I can see both sides of the
Yeah,
situation there, and like a big project, something about to go live, and super important, because that's another one that I have been bringing as well, like the perspective of testers and developers, like
yeah,
this fight, and in some ways, there's as well like this antagonistic situation also against managers.
yeah.
Like it's like these three amigos that are often fighting, where if you don't know what is the experience of the other side, it's very easy to come up with judgments and say like, oh, it's a manager's fault, and it's
Exactly. And I mean, for that's one reason I also say that one of a big thing for a manager is to have empathy. So
Mhm.
even though you might not be able to code what people are coding or test what people are testing, You need to have empathy for that. Need to have empathy for the people. And you might need to be the one that brings the two parties together and says, hey, we need to talk about this. Because I can hear from your discussions that there are things being said that shouldn't be said. Let's have a conversation about this
Mm.
because you are both necessary for the team. You're both necessary for us to create a good product. You're contributing to the same thing. You're part of the same thing. Let's figure out how we can pull in the same direction. And I think that's also part of a manager's job.
I think that has been the theme. Uh, to give you some context, when I do these interviews at conferences, many people bring a common theme
Yeah,
to the talk, and this has been, in my opinion, the end game of what we are, why we are
yeah,
doing what we're doing. And so often we miss it, for get lost into I am a tester, our identities, our
yeah.
tasks, and not towards the end game.
And we forgot to ask why.
Hmm.
Why are we doing this?
And so many times, like, no, 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 I just have to file 10 defects, and that's my task
Yeah,
for the day,
yeah,
or do this release, or get to with the manager that got mad at the tester.
yeah. And how
I
can
have
we,
this release date, and that's all that matters.
and like, how can we work with the developers? If a developer does not know a lot about testing, can we sit together with them, even though we don't know what the code does? We can have the discussions with them. We can have that kind of like, oh, let's look at this. Let's test it while it's still on your machine. And then next time, maybe as a developer, oh, I can test this programmatically, and we can start having automated tests. We can start having test first because it's not something you just know how to do automatically. And test first is super difficult as a developer. I mean, when I did it the first time, I was like, why do I create a test and run it without code? Because the thing is, you create a test, you run it, it's red. You make code, it's green. Until the first time I made a test, I ran it and it was green, but there was no code. And I'm like, oh, that's
Uh-oh.
why you run it first.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you don't know what it's testing.
And I think it's a lot of empathy that you generate both ways. We were talking, that you understand, and if you transmit well the message that you are, why you are doing that, and the developer understands, and when we all know, if we all do our part, we collaborate towards that end game, it's prettier, easier, less pain for everyone
Yeah,
to push through. Because also, developers get super mad, like, you're pushing back my code, worked on. Yeah, but why didn't we work on this earlier, or
yeah,
together? And why are we making it in the worst possible way that will be painful for everybody, right?
yeah. And how can we do it better next time?
Uh huh.
So not just start looking at why did we do this and whose fault this is, but look at why are we doing this and how can we make it better next time?
Mm-hmm.
What did we miss? Like, okay, we see this bug coming up. Could we have caught this before we started coding, maybe? Or could we have caught it when we talked to the client about what they want?
Because that's the other element. The end customer is the manager, the developer, the tester, the end customer, and everybody has to be kind of happy with the situation.
Yeah,
And you got me thinking, with the medical devices, that it was a big thing, that you have a deadline, but you also have something that is probably life of the or death
yeah.
situations, that if you release it, yeah, there might be a big problem. Okay, customer, we have this big issue, we found it, do you want us to release that way?
Yeah,
If everyone is in the same page, like, take your time.
yeah. And
It's
I
my
mean,
health on
sometimes
the
it's like, oh yeah, this is a competition website. It's okay. Sometimes it's this has to do with money. This has to do with people.
Black Friday is coming, if we don't release this data, like,
Yeah,
okay, well, yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes it's good, it's interesting, because
But what I always talk to people about is you need to make it an active decision.
yeah.
So when I rarely see people who, so there are companies who will release bad quality, but I rarely see them making an active decision.
Why did you release bad quality? No.
Yeah, so
If you have a reason.
yeah, I worked with a company, a bank, that wanted to do so that was working on this was some of the first time you could pay with your mobile. So what you can do is you can transfer people, but sorry, you cannot transfer people. You can transfer money to other people just by knowing their phone number. And this
Ah.
this bank made an active decision to put something out that was not totally tested because they wanted to be first.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the first one on the market. It took 3 months before the other banks came, and this is the only product that is left. But they actively said, yes, it's okay that we are not done creating everything, that there might be bugs because we want to be first. But I think that's the only time I've actually seen like a proper active. Otherwise, like, yeah, we want it to be done as fast as possible and with as least
Just
people as
because,
possible. And it's implicit that you want the same quality.
and it's sometimes blindly just following up like a given direction just because and not ever verifying, getting like these retrospectives, but true retrospectives, really, really like, is this what we're doing towards the right
Yeah.
direction, deadline, budget? There are so many elements. And I wonder, you are also presenting tomorrow like a bigger. Uh
So yeah, so tomorrow I have a team workshop. It's an
huh.
experiment that Agile Testing Day is doing this year. That if you sign up, I think it's 5 or more together, you get 45 minutes with a coach. And there are people who are specialists in testing. I'm more specialist in collaboration, psychological safety.
Uh huh.
So I had one team that I helped this week, and I'm having another team tomorrow, where I sit
Nice.
down with them. So they kind of send their, this is what we want help with, this is who we are, and then tomorrow we sit down for 45 minutes, and I see what advice I can give them and what challenges I can give them, so that they can go
So you
home
also
and
give
improve
them
things.
some or some challenges, yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, like the team I just had, I talked to them about stuff that they didn't come with themselves, because I'm like, if you want this to work, you need to take a step back and look at some other stuff as well.
That's really cool because they bring their perspectives, their own questions. I'm sure it's like lots of Q&A, but as well like, I think you also consider this and like,
Yeah.
oh,
And
right.
I mean, because that's kind of been my job the last 10 years at least, no more,
Oh,
has been
nice.
to kind of be the one that has that overview and can work with teams, but can also say to the manager, yeah, I'm working with this team, but the real problem is that things are not coordinated with sales. So sales get angry because they don't get the thing they want. The developers get angry because they get pushed. So let's see how we can look at this.
Mm,
Instead of going, we need the team to be more efficient, or we need sales to make up their mind, let's look at how can we make this work, because we can't just fix one thing, and we can't rely on magic, which a lot of companies do. It's like, ta-da, now it works.
yeah.
No, it doesn't.
And
We are,
and it's just, I like a lot what you mentioned. It's not like a single action. You gotta be more mindful holistically.
yeah,
What is the impact? Or because you may be doing this thing and many never pay attention into what is the repercussion that we'll have here, over there, and
yeah,
all
and
around.
we can't foresee the result. That's the thing, is this is so complex that we can say, okay, if I do X, I think Y will happen, but we can't guarantee it. When we have Y, we can go back and see, hey, how did this happen?
Hmm.
But even if we repeat it with the same people, we might not get the same result. And that's why this is super difficult, because there are so many moving parts,
Hmm.
and we have humans.
And uh, and this is also something that I feel the QA community sometimes we forget.
Yeah.
We are so focused on the automating and finding the defects, and that we don't see the big picture as well. I mean, it's, and I'm not putting just blame on QA, and
No,
like,
no.
we are all teams. We gotta all be mindful of each other and the other members that are collaborating towards this end game that we are trying to get into the world. Sometimes without full quality testing or no
Yeah.
knowing of defects, but we know why, and that's also very interesting.
Yeah, and I think Anna Marie Jarrett has been talking about a quality coach. And part of that is to not be in the teams, but be the one who has the big overview and
Mm.
who knows, maybe, okay, this teams needs some technical coaching. Here, the product needs some coaching. What's going on? Where do we need to build in quality? How are these things connected? So that's also a part that you can take as a QA, is that you can have this overall overview. But and again, it's what are you good at? What do you like?
Yeah.
Because there are people who like to go into nitty gritty details and make amazing automatic scripts. There are people who like user interface. There are people who love to build in quality and help people when they analyze. And there's enough space for all of us. Not all companies agree, but they should, because we have a lot of bad products out there.
And even if there is not enough space, I think that every facet, different set of skills is needed.
Yeah, it is.
You need to complement everything, and if you lack any of those, you may be in trouble. You may not be able to move further. And
Yeah, and I think if we move too much to the same people, Like if you say a team should be able to do all the things, what we get is a spork. A spork is a spoon, it's a fork, it's a knife, and it's not good at any of it.
Yep.
That's not what we want. We want people who are spoons and forks and knives and who work together because they know different things. They have different aspects.
I have a bad reaction when I hear the full stack
Yeah.
thing where it's like, no, those are sports and those are not even real. No one is like truly full stack,
No,
and
they're not.
you we excel in some different things, others and others, and if we complement, I like the T-shape because there are some other things that
Yeah.
you may understand, but you interact with others.
And very often when you say full stack, what you mean is back end developer as
I
well.
have heard it in other contexts, and it always drives
Yeah.
me crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, please don't use that term. That's not. At the very least, when you try to use it, means someone that has more like T shape, E shape,
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
shape. But I don't know. This is so many elements that you're bringing and teaching, and no, but it's
Yeah.
awareness
Yeah. Yeah.
that many have no idea that the gaps that they have, or as managers, oh, I have been imbued in the mantle of manager, and oh,
Yeah.
now I'm a no. You got also train, and as QAs sometimes, oh, why is this person being paid so much? Oh, it's not easy being a manager. It's not just
No.
retarded. May not have the technical skills that as a QA sometimes we have, or QA skills,
Yeah.
or etc. But it's that understanding that that person is fulfilling a role, hopefully in the best manager training or background, because
Yeah.
it's not easy being a manager. Trust me. It requires a lot of skills that not
Yeah.
everybody has, and just because that's the carrot in front that you have
Yeah.
floating, you should not be pushing towards that mindlessly. It's
No, and I think that's a problem in our organizations is that people who are really good at their craft, we tend to make them managers.
and
Why not
then,
let them be super good at their craft? If that's what they want. If they want to be managed, that's a different thing.
but you need to train towards that.
Yeah, you
It's
need to
not just
train
because
towards
you're a
it.
super senior automator now you're a manager.
Yeah,
There's a transition there.
yeah, and there are things you need to learn.
Uh-huh.
Difficult things. Um, there are difficult things in management, in leadership, and in human skills.
Yeah, and many, if you're not aware of not aware of that, sometimes what happens if you're a super awesome technical automator or QA person and you move to manager and you just do it just chasing the title and label and
Yeah,
you want the
yeah,
little gold coin, what you end up is like you lose a spot of an awesome automation QA something, and then you have someone that is struggling as a manager and you have a problem in two positions.
yes, exactly.
Beware that you know why are you moving to. Don't chase only the title and I just want the.
No, and as an organization, what are you doing to support people?
Oh yeah, because if you
Yeah,
promote someone, make sure that they're going to be good managers.
exactly. But I mean, if you want, there was a talk here by Kevin Harris called something like "Tips for the New Test Manager," and
Mm.
the first question was, "Why?
Why do you want to be a
Why do you want
manager?
to be a test manager? Think about this. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve?" It's actually a super good talk because it's very down to earth, and it talks about some of the questions you should ask yourself.
Yeah, and it's definitely not because I want to be a boss of people.
No,
No.
no.
You gotta really wish and enjoy managing people, and it's like,
Yeah, and I think if you want to be a boss like that, go away.
I don't support that. Yeah.
No.
But Gita, also, I don't want to hold you for too long. It has been, I just noticed, like, oh my God, this conversation flew by. Um, Now, to wrap up a little bit, you gave a lot of good recommendations. Are you publishing these socials or
Yeah,
anything?
sometimes I'm writing blog posts.
Where can people follow up with your
So
blog
I'm
posts?
called Native Wired everywhere, whether it's Blue Sky or my company. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect to me.
Look up for
Um,
the down there on the screen.
yeah.
You can see
Um,
where to
and
find.
since I have purple hair, I'm easy to find. So sometimes I will and a lot of my talks are also online. My
Oh,
management talks are not online yet, but they will be because I
nice.
only started this year with doing pure management talk. But the ones about mental health, for instance, which are super important, are there.
Oh,
Um, so
can we find them on your page? And
not yet because I'm working on my homepage, but
okay.
they are on YouTube. So if you search for Gitte Klitgaard on YouTube, you will find a lot of videos as well.
Oh, look for. Do you have a channel? I'm not sure.
No,
or it's like spread?
It's spread all over.
Okay,
One day I might.
yeah, because I was gonna say like and subscribe to her
Yeah.
now, but this is just look for it. We should
Yeah.
create a playlist of all your.
Yeah. Or just like me in general. I like to be liked.
We all do. Gita, thank you very much for sharing all these insights and like the manager perspective. I don't usually talk about that, but I love when we can spread some light into it because
Yeah.
it's always very misunderstood from many different perspectives. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the conversation. It was really nice.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. And well, everybody, that was Gide bringing up different perspectives, mental health as well, empathy, management. It's super important. And well, with that, I know that earlier I said that it was the last conversation, and I was like, yeah, sometimes it happens that we can pull a little bit more. But this is it. I think that this is it for me. It's getting late. We're getting the closing keynote soon, so we better prepare for that. And tomorrow I am presenting my tutorial. So yeah, not more action for tomorrow, other than some pictures here and there. Stay tuned. But this has been Agile Testing Days 2024, reporting from Potsdam, Germany. The very first time that I'm here, I'm super happy. It has been an awesome experience. And well, with that, I will be calling it a day, but the conference still rolling. We're gonna head to the keynote, and tomorrow there are more adventures. If you're around or if you're tuning up, stay tuned because many of the presenters will be posting, and I think that they are streamed the conversation.
If you have an online access. Yeah.
Yeah, so stay tuned, and I'll see you around. The adventure is over for the interviews, but it's not over. So see you around. Thank you very much if you held online for the whole days, and I'll see you around. Adios, Gite.
Adios.
Adios, everybody. Now for sure, this is it. I'm closing the computer. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.